My name is Dr. Max Liboiron. I'm a professor in geography at Memorial University in Canada, and I run the CLEAR Lab there, the Civic Laboratory for Environmental Action Research. My dissertation, which was more than 15 years ago, was about the emerging state of plastic pollution as a field. And now my work focuses on creating tools and infrastructure for community-based plastic pollution research now that it is an established field. An unattended accomplishment is how well known my lab, CLEAR, is. It's known for plastic pollution research, but more than that, it's known outside of that for how we do things, how we do equity, how we do justice, and how we run a lab in lab culture. As part of that, I move roughly $1 million of resources out of academia and the state and into community and for youth. So I'm very proud of our grant success, because that's where it goes. I was also very pleasantly surprised at the reception of my first book, Pollution is Colonialism. As a first book, you do not know how it's going to go. You really hope someone's going to read it. And it's been better than that. Not only do people read it, which is amazing, some people say it's genuinely helpful to their politics, to their methods, to their research, to their selves. So that's pretty exciting. I don't know if I can top that. It took me 10 years to write that book, so I did not publish out of my dissertation. The dissertation was done, and now there's a separate book. And so it might take me another 10 years to write another book, but I also might retire by then. So we'll see. And the last thing is, one of the coolest places I've published is Teen Vogue, which I'm very, very happy with. Yes, a standout challenge, not so much a failure, but definitely a challenge, was when I nearly dropped out of my PhD in the first week because of culture problems. So I did my master's degree in SUNY Stony Brook, which is a public university, and I did my PhD at New York University, which is a private institute, and I did not know the difference. I'm Canadian. We do not have private universities really in Canada. And there was this crystallizing moment in the first week when I was in an intro seminar class. And I remember we were sitting in a circle, and I was looking at the person speaking, and her shoes, I recognized, were worth more than my rent. And my rent, I thought, was enormous, and it was hard to make. And there were these shoes, and I looked to the left and I looked to the right, and everyone's shoes were very expensive. And that dovetailed with how people were introducing themselves, saying, I'm a Foucauldian, and then they would say things I did not understand, right? These high theory things. And I remember having this intense bodily visceral reaction that I now think was a fight or flight response. I wanted to flee. I wanted to run out the room and run down the stairs. I was on the 4th floor. I was like, I can make 4 flights of stairs, because I was like, I don't fit here, and I have to leave because I can't succeed here. I can't meet the bar for what is normal. And so the next day I told my advisor that I wanted to leave, and what kind of paperwork do I do to leave? And he had an immediate and panicked response. I now know later that it's because I was filling multiple diversity quotas for him in the department. I was first gen, I was low income, I was Indigenous and queer, international, gender minority, and I passed for white, so how great was that? And they were really trying to keep me, and he said, well, I'll find you an Indigenous faculty member to talk to, because clearly you're feeling alienated. And I was like, sure. He could not find me an Indigenous faculty member because there were none. By the time I graduated 5 years later, there was one at all of New York University. But they did find one Indigenous guy for me to talk to. He wasn't faculty. He was the director of the Multicultural Center. His name is Rick Travoya, and he is now my godfather. He was also the advisor of my lab, and it is very central to my world now, my academic and personal world. And Rick did not convince me to stay. I convinced myself to stay, but he showed me that you could stay. He did not convince me that I belonged. Neither of us thought that I belonged, which was part of why I trusted him. But he convinced me that if you don't belong, like neither of us did, you can maneuver the system and still come out with the goals you want. And I have spent the rest of my career figuring out how you maneuver systems that aren't built for you. It's one of my primary research and methods questions. So finding Rick was very impactful. It taught me that you could be someone like us, not only not belonging here, but you could run things. And that really helped. And without Rick, I don't know what would have happened. I might have stayed, I might have left, I might have stayed and not liked it very much, but definitely my world would have been different. So one of the things that I don't want people to think from that story is that I had imposter syndrome. I did not. I have a very secure sense of self. At no point did I think, oh no, what's wrong with me? I know exactly what my deal was. I knew those people were different. And so my freak out wasn't angst. There was only panic that I had landed myself somewhere that I didn't fit and couldn't succeed because I did not understand the basic culture of success. And if it was shoes, I was screwed because that wasn't going to happen. And it seemed to be shoes. And so that didn't mean I failed. That meant, oh, I can go be a sanitation work. Oh, I can go do something else. I'd had jobs. It would have been fine, but it wasn't about my self-worth. It was about how am I going to make money and where is my professional space right now. So that's really important. And so it wasn't a mental health issue. It was more like a career trajectory issue. So a key word in coping strategies for me is the strategy part. I am extremely strategic. Coping is just a certain set of strategies. What is the problem? How do you solve the problem? Leaving university, dropping out was one way to solve the problem. Staying is another one, but I had to figure out different ways to stay. And so one strategy was reorienting how I understood my place in the university. It was never one of belonging, but belonging was like way off the table at that point. So I switched to one that I now call grifting, right? Passing, moving resources, meeting my goal with other people's resources, the university's resources. I'm here to get my paycheck. I'm here to get my PhD. Those are my priorities. How do I get those? And the answer is often passing. And because passing is a huge part of being in places where you don't belong, I'm very willing to bend very, very far over. This is a gig. This is not a community. I have to be ethical, but I'm very permissive. And so it's that sort of mental organization. This is a grift, not belonging. I can bend, but only this far. Those sorts of things were really important. In more concrete terms, convening and organizing people who are like me. So I started the NYU's Indigenous Students Group, still running. I still do that kind of stuff. I found an advisor. I changed advisor to find one who would teach me about the cultural cues of success as much as like footnotes. So he taught me about shoes, literally. You know, we had this, he opened up the black box of academic culture and he knew how to do that and supported me in that. And then another thing that I have done and can cope and continue to use is that I never have my personal become professional. My personal life is not fodder, is not raw material, does not add value to my professional life. I do not bring stories of home or family into my professional work. The stories I've been telling you seem really personal, right? Yeah, I've only been telling you about stories from work. Right, so you can seem very personable, you can, but it does not become fodder. My personal life does not become fodder for academia. That helps with the mental health a lot. So part of the reason we called this scenario a challenge that was a failure is that there was no failure. If you wanted to locate a failure in this, it was that I had gotten into grad school without doing enough research to understand what I was truly getting into. And I'd put a lot of time and energy and resources, which I had very few of at the time, in making what appeared to be the wrong decision. I had landed myself somewhere where I could not meet the bars of success. And so in that sense, I felt like things had gone wrong and I had failed. In retrospect, I also could not possibly have had the tools to research elitist culture, having none of those tools available to me. That doesn't mean the system failed. The system is set up as an elitist structure. It was designed to keep people out. And it wasn't my failure to choose to stay in that system, or if I had chosen to leave. One of the really important things, so defining failure and defining success according to your successes and your failings is very important. The other big lesson was unexpected allies. So I ended up with an amazing advisor by the end, a different advisor than I started with. He really attended to the cultural black box of whiteness and elitism and class. I remember he said, "What do you need help with?" And I was like, "Tell me about the shoe situation. Why are people's shoes so expensive? Why is this normal? Why is that not normal?" And he took me to a conference and we sat on the side and like ate carrots and dip while he told me, like, "You see those two people talking? You can tell who the senior researcher is by their body language. See that guy? He's wearing like scubby clothes. That's because he's a historian, and in that discipline you're allowed to. You are not in a discipline you're allowed to do that with. Here's how you can tell." And sort of unpacked that sort of stuff. And those have been some of the most successful lessons I've had, actually. They are the tools for success, and I have learned them. Not today, but when I'm going out getting money and being successful. And then the other really important thing is what another Indigenous scholar has told me is called making your treehouse. So you make your space and you pull up the ladder, and only people with the password can come up. So as a PhD student, I created the Native American Indigenous Students Group, NASAG, bad acronym. We met every Friday for Fry Bread Friday. It's still running. Lots of other people have said that space has helped them sort of found a home base that they can then move out of at NYU. I'm still building a treehouse. I run the IndigiLab network now, which is Indigenous run labs internationally. We have monthly meetings. There's no agenda. It's just a support network. Clear is another treehouse. I do not believe in radical inclusivity. I believe in a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to these little professional spaces that you need to flourish so that you can go out and do the rest of it. And then the final lesson is the privacy. Yourself is not your work. Your personal failures and your professional failures are not the same of failures. Their successes are not the same set of aren't successes either, right? They're not the same set of successes. So yeah, I don't mix the two. I have a few major pieces of advice for grad students. One is make your treehouse. Have a small group of people you trust, surround themselves with your degree, find a way to pull up that ladder and make a password. Chances are excellent that some of those people should be from outside your academic life. Your employment should not be your heart and soul. That is, your employer should not have those things. It's not the same thing as who you are, and having people outside academia can help you figure out those things and also help you figure out what's normal and abnormal and gaslighting and those sorts of things. Very important. Choose advisors who are people you want to be like. Good people first, good scholars second, content scholars distant third, right? So it doesn't matter what they research so much as how they research, how they treat people, how they are. Choose those people. For folks who are doing sort of university level work as grad students or when you go out, I think universities need to think about retention more than recruitment. Recruiting people into bad spaces is not a success. Keeping them there is not a success. So having routes for leaving a program as a type of success is really important. I have a lot of students who have left my lab and we've worked together to make that successful. And then the other thing is quotas work. I was retained, and it was largely because of a quota system. Resources were mobilized for me because it was a quota system. Quota systems work better than other forms of amorphous sort of diversity intentions. And then finally, I think it's important to think about what your terms of success and failure are, not in terms of programmatic or academic benchmarks. If I had dropped out of grad school, it would not have been a failure. I would have been an immensely successful sanitation worker or administrator or whatever. I would have been valid, I would have met my rent, would have been fine. Thank you for watching Failsafe Science. Again, my name is Max, and I hope this story helps graduate students move through the system, whatever that looks like for you.